Good morning, sir.
Hello, good morning.
Shall we wait for people to join the session?
Kavish, I think some are coming. You can wait for 2 minutes, please.
I don't know if you can see the screen. Can someone tell me if you can see the PowerPoint?
Yes,
Not
sir. We
now,
see the
but
cursor, but the screen is black.
Screen is black, you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. Switch to screen. Just a minute. Oh no. Good to see you, sir.
Hello, Vishal. How are you?
Great, sir. How are you?
I'm great. Looking forward to listening to you.
Such a pleasure.
Yes, yes. So you have joined now Lokbharti, Vishal?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You are into Gandhian studies.
Yes.
So you were previously with this Omkar English medium school, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, fine. Wonderful. I am at Olbipur right now, Vishal.
Oh, you have moved from Patadi to Ulbipur?
Yes, yes. I got transferred a couple of months back.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. So we are now quite close.
Yeah. So would love to see you again.
Yes, yes, sir.
Right. So, uh, uh, if everyone is around, shall we start? Alpha?
yes, sir. We can start. Kavisha, please.
Okay, so Vishal sir, I'll be muting my audio and video both, and only your video and audio would be there. Nobody else would be there around, right?
All right, all right.
Okay,
Kavisha,
thank you. Let us start. Yeah.
Kavisha, please introduce, sir.
I think she is mute.
Good morning, everyone. I want to welcome you all in today's session of Dr. Vishal Bhadani, and I would like to introduce our today's speaker. So he is the director of International Center of Applied Gandhian Studies, Lokbharti Sanosna, Bhavnagar, Gujarat. Sir has worked as a faculty in English with the premier institute and universities of state, such as the MS University of Baroda, the Indian Institute of Teacher Education, Marwadi University, and GTU. Sir has written and translated textbooks of Cambridge University Press, Gujarat State School, Textbook Board, National Institute of Open Schooling, etc. He has been a part of preparing training modules for finishing school program, Government of Gujarat, and learning materials for the Babasaheb Ambedkar Open University. As a translator, Sir has translated novels of Dhruvad such as Timirpanti and Akupar in English. The Sociology textbook of 11th standard for the National Institute of Open Schooling into Gujarati. Sir is Being a translation expert with Gujarat School Textbook Board and Delhi Sahitya Academy, he has trained thousands of teachers and professors across the state on learning, unlearning, and relearning. Sir has delivered expert talks at several platforms such as Grand Education Fair Ahmedabad, GEC Gandhinagar, Symbiosis Institute Pune, Christ College Rajkot, English Department SPU, and Bhavnagar University, Sahitya Academy Gandhinagar, ITI Rajkot, KCG Ahmedabad, to name a few. His area of interest in translations is translation studies, philosophy, and learning processes. He is passionate about creative writing. And today, Sir is going to deliver a special talk on rethinking writing. So I gladly welcome you, Sir, and hand over the screen as well as the mic to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Kavisha, for such a kind introduction. Now, I'm unable to see my presentation. Can you see the presentation?
Sir, we can't.
We can't see you, sir. Vishal, sir.
Okay. So in screen share, if I say start
Sir,
screen,
screen share is on and presentation screen is also available. Yes.
is it available? You said, like, can you see
Yes.
that?
Yes, sir. We can see your screen.
Yes, fine. We
Yes,
can see that now.
available.
Yes.
All right. I'm really happy that on a Sunday morning, I mean, these days, all days are Sundays, but uh, that people are taking time for learning, relearning couple of basics. So when I was approached by a couple of friends to talk about something interesting, I thought we should be talking about writing, and that's why the title is Rethinking Writing, because we have been thinking writing in numerous ways. I believe that everybody is aware that we primarily write for three purposes. We write to instruct, we write to entertain, and we write to persuade, to convince somebody. I also believe there is a fourth function of writing as well, which is to enlighten, because that's the school of thought I belong to in terms of writing and reading. So this is briefly about the title. So why are we rethinking writing? So well, I have jotted down three primary reasons why we, the students and teachers of English, should be rethinking writing. My first reason is we have long ignored it, in the sense that the kind of importance we give to criticism, literature, maybe grammar, but writing as an organic process has long been ignored. That's why we should be rethinking it right now. Second is we hardly understand the significance of writing in developing one's worldview. It is directly connected to the entire perspective for life, for world, for society, even for oneself. Writing seriously rewires our thinking, and I'll be deliberating upon it in a brief after a while. So that's why we should not be seeing writing only as an academic activity, but it has a lot to do with your personal perspectives about the world. Third is, and this is my serious proposal for everybody who is into academics, that our curriculum does not give ample scope for teaching writing. Uh, from in the sense that we do not have exclusive papers on teaching writing. I am familiar that in the first year foundation courses we do have course on introduction to academic writing and all that, but that's not the writing I'm talking about. I'm talking about writing with all its engineering, with all its philosophy, with all its beauty, and that calls for a separate paper. And what I'm proposing is from standard 6 to like PG, across the disciplines, it must be made compulsory. And I am going to analyze reasons in the forthcoming slides. So these are the three reasons why we should be rethinking writing. In this discussion, I'm going to focus on uh, all aspects of writing, not just creative writing or academic writing or persuasive writing, but you'll be getting insights for all such purposes. Yeah, so what can you expect from this lecture? So basically three expectations you can have. One is what writing does to us in terms of its impact on our brain. Second is tools of effective writing, some tools that I have identified and I've been using them for quite a few years now, and preparation required for writing well. So these are the kind of learning outcomes, you can say. Yeah, so and throughout this lecture, I'm going to have some personal asides as well, because my reading on writing is lesser than my own experience of writing. So every day I make sure that I write few pages on and off the topics that I'm interested in. So I believe that there is great chaotic noise happening in the mind, and that's why I consider writing as a beautiful symphony which translates that chaotic noise into melodious music. And there are reasons to believe in this thesis. First reason is that the invention of writing is actually our brain on the paper. For the first times, humans started seeing their brain on pages, that this is what happens to me. This is what is happening. The whole choreography, all whole orchestra that is being played looks something like this. If not in exact terms, but it looks something like this. So that's why writing is a very serious process and practice that we should be understanding. So this lecture I have divided into two parts. In first part, we will be discussing brain and writing, the relationship between neuroscience and writing, and second is something that we should be interested in, how to write well. So let's go to the first part, brain and writing. For past almost 2.5 years, I've been reading extensively on neuroscience, and no matter what I speak, I vehemently bring in neuroscience into it. Some noise. I don't know who's. All right. Yes, so I bring in this neuroscience into all the activities I do, and I explored quite a few books on how neuroscience is helping us in terms of our learning processes, uh, for example, language learning in particular. So when we look at brain and writing, the first thing I would like to emphasize is writing is like a sport for our brain, and it is our brain, like any other muscle, can be trained, and that in technical terms known as neuroplasticity. Previously the assumption was that there are fixed areas in the brain that function for categorical behavior, but recent studies have disapproved it, and now almost everyone is in agreement that the brain changes itself, so it can be trained. So there's a neuroscientist like Martin Lotze. He says that a professional writer's brain is similar to the brain activity of sportsmen during a game, because that's what happens when we write. So many brain regions are involved in the single activity. If I'm allowed a little digression from this writing, even drawing and music are the two exclusive activities wherein major areas of brain are involved. They are exclusive activities. No other activities come closer to involving so many brain regions for a single cause. That's why I'm always of the opinion that we should be doing more and more mind mapping on the page. We should be drawing more and more, and we should be listening to singing, humming, so as to keep our brain fresh and alive for a very long period in our life. So, which are the brain areas that are activated when we write anything? So basically, I'm sure people who have studied and taught linguistics are familiar with these two areas, which were discovered by the scientists. They are known by their names like Broca and Wernicke. So this Broca's area helps in producing coherent speech, and Wernicke's area helps in speech processing and understanding language. You might be wondering that although we are talking about writing, why are we talking about these areas which are focusing more on speech? The reason is for brain, it is not an exclusive, the compartment is not that watertight that, okay, now I'm speaking and now I'm writing. It is interwoven in a very, very meaningful ways. And you must have experienced that when you write something, you're speaking to yourself. It is because of these two areas. And the third is, as you can see here, hippocampus. This area is related to our visual processing. For example, when you are imagining something to write, when you are thinking what to write, it is this area that gives you images, pictures, and that's why it is very important. So whenever any of these areas are damaged, people experience disorders and brain conditions that hamper our speaking and writing. A lot of good research has taken place in uh, healing these disorders and conditions. So these are the areas that are activated when we are writing anything. As you can see here, writing requires multiple cognitive skills. For example, eye-hand coordination, language, memory, creativity, insight, logic, spatial intelligence, and abstract thought. As you can see here, writing is not just about language, it is about so many other things. I was recently reading a book called The Brain That Changes Itself. It is the best selling book in the field of neuroscience. And there was a unique case of a lady who had this disorder wherein she experienced perpetual falling. Even after she falls flat on the ground, she feels that she is still falling. It is like when you fall into a bottomless well. So there is no end to that falling. So when the neurologist like investigated the case, they had this MRI and other like test. They figured out that she lost her sense of balance. Now that is the sixth sense. We are familiar with our sense of touch, smell, like sight, hearing, and sniffing. But apart from that, there's a sixth sense that takes care of our sense of balance, and which is somewhere called vestibular function. If somebody loses that, that person cannot sit or stand in any particular position. That's why we have seen that our elders, as they grow old, they have this tendency of falling more often because that function is loosening up. So when we write, this eye hand coordination is also required, and people who have this problem, they cannot do that very well. And since it requires multiple cognitive skills, it's a damn systematic process, and parallel to that, it's a complex process. And that's why it's very difficult to write well, and not everybody can write well. There are numerous people out there who can speak well, but it's very difficult to map their writing skills with their speaking skills. So it's in that sense very difficult, very complex, and that's why it requires exclusive treatment. And therefore, I have been arguing that we should have a separate paper and separate, in fact, we should not teach it, we should call it training. It requires training. So my question to all of you is, do you write or type? Because this research is going to surprise you. And I'm sure there are many people who will have contentions against this whole research. And for past about 30 years, there has been discussion among teachers and students, which is better to write or to type. And people like me who like I have written my entire story collection on laptop, but I have not given up writing. And when I came across this research, it felt so good that there is some that there are merits in writing. So this is a research carried out in Princeton University, and so fresh. It is 2019 research. I'm just showing you one image of exam performance, but there are other variables like retention, like comprehension. In all these variables, all parameters, people who write manually with pen and paper, they have performed better. That's what the research says. That I do not mean to say that we should stop typing. I mean, we can't now. We have gone too far, but we can regain our writing, catch up with our writing skills, writing along with drawing. Let me show you a page of my own diary. I do something like this. So whenever I'm reading, if I like something, I write those quotes, and if possible, I draw also. So this is how the writing is helping me in a big way. However, you can read further research. There are other conflicting research that says no, typing is better. However, in typing, our brain has to work word for word, especially when you're taking notes. If you're typing, you have to type entire word, and that is a faster process in a way that doesn't give you ample time to pause and think. It's like watching a video and reading a book. When you're watching a video, your brain functions are guided by the video. When you're reading a book, your brain functions are in your control. So you can pause and think, underline, maybe put a circle somewhere. So according to this research, that writing is better. And also, when you write something, uh, more than one sense is involved. And in learning process, neurologists believe that any activity that is multisensory is always helpful in better learning. So for example, if you are reading, so your eye is involved, right? But when you're reading and writing, your hand is also involved. So it's a better activity than just reading. Likewise, when you're writing, multiple active senses are involved. So is true for typing. Writing contributes to our physiological health. I was exploring this, how writing can help, what it does to us. So sorry, yeah. And not all kinds of writing. Researchers at this university are very specific. They are saying that expressive writing improves physiological well-being and may improve the symptoms of some diseases. The next research is in the University of New Zealand. I'm sorry, I've not cited that. Journal writing helped patients to heal their physical wounds faster after facing traumatic experiences. So this is what writing does to even our physical aspects of wound and diseases. Of course, there are psychological benefits that we can point at. Expressive writing is one of the popular ways to cope with stress, intense emotions, and anxiety. It reminds me of another beautiful book I have read. It says why zebras why zebras don't uh, why zebras don't have ulcers. It is about uh, why animals don't experience stress, and when we as humans experience stress, what are the coping up methods? So writing is one of the therapeutic methods which has been used for many decades now, particularly in forgetting some of the traumatic experiences. So one of the cases I was reading wherein a patient had broke up. It's a typical teenage love story, and the boy couldn't come out of that situation. So he was made to write the incident of that day of breakup, and he was made write that incident 40 times. But gradually he was asked to alter few words, sentences, and by the time, if you read the first write up and the 40th one, you could see there is a gradual like curve wherein the boy came out from the guilt part. That like in the first he said, oh, it was my mistake, I couldn't have done that, and and the last he said that, oh, it was to happen, and gradually he could come out of it. So this is what writing is capable of doing, but in a strict psychological conditions and under the guidance of practitioner like psychiatrist. This is interesting. The second bullet point, it decreases the activity in the brain's emotional center and the more rational part of the brain increases. So when we write, as I said, we have to choose words, we have to write in linear fashion. If you are like dealing with like Asiatic scripts, except Chinese, I mean Mandarin, wherein they write vertical, but still there is a certain system that we follow. That's why our rational faculty gets more activated, and our emotional faculty works only for providing data like experiential images, and then the rational faculty is more involved for producing what we experience. Well, that's the end part of what writing does and how our brain is involved in a brief manner. Now let's talk about how to write well. And this pencil and eraser is something I always love to show because they are symbolic of rewriting. And this calls for R.L. Stevenson, one of our favorite authors who gave us treats like Treasure Island and other wonderful novels. So he said that in literature, the difficulty is not what to write, but to write what you mean. And I'm sure it is not only true for literature, but of all kinds of writing, because we have seen the kind of problems that occur because of misinterpretations of what the writer did not intend. So the question is how to write what we mean. All right. So some of the personal insights I'm sharing here. Be wise in your word choice. Now it's a kind of statement. When can you be wise with your word choice? So you can choose only if you have options, right? In English, they say beggars can't be choosers. So those of you who are teaching right now, you must have noticed that our students' language is sum total of and, but, and so, very flat. You don't get any phrasal verbs, you don't get any idiomatic expressions, you don't get any coinages that that should be happening in this age of students, because they don't have that repository of words. And to have more options, fill your heart, mind, brain with words by reading diversified materials. Here I'll again take maybe a minute to talk about our reading habits. The students of literature, have this obsession for reading literature and sometimes obsession for teaching literature only. And that is dangerous, because when we read only one disciplines, our register, our language or our lexicon is captivated by that vocabulary, and that vocabulary governs our entire worldview, which is like myopia. When it's like blinders. So, and it's not good. So I always recommend that the students of arts literature should be reading all other types of materials, like we should be reading commerce, history, philosophy, artificial intelligence, a bit of computer science, a bit of biology, chemistry, all this discipline, because these words, they activate particular functions in the brain, and when you need them, you can have easy access. So to be wise, you should have more words. And how can you have more words? When you read diversified materials. Some problems and their solutions that I would like to talk about while writing. Many of these problems are known to us for decades now, and that's why we have come up with solutions. So what I'm going to do is maybe I'll be talking about 4 problems and their solutions. These are kind of errors that we make while writing. First is misuse words. You can see here there's the original sentence and the revised one. Sometimes, when we are in hurry or in haste, we use word which doesn't fit there in the context. So in this sentence, as you can see, India has a monotonous culture and India has a homogeneous culture. We are not looking at the fact of the statement, but just the choice of the word. However, the fact remains India has heterogeneous culture. But as you can see, monotony and homogeneity, monotony has to do with time, whereas homogeneity has to do with the pattern. So when we misuse words, we lack the charm that should be there in the sentence. So first problem is this: we should avoid monotony. So as I said, our students' language and, but, and so. So it should have been made more heterogeneous with diversified sentence expressions. Second is this: words with unwanted connotations and meanings. Now this can create havoc, particularly when we are writing for heterogeneous groups of readers. Some of them could be expert readers, some of them could be readers who are always interested into the political maneuvers of statements. So statement like this, like I sprayed the ants in the private places, I sprayed, and revised one is I sprayed the ants in their hiding places. Like what we mean in our mind is the hiding places, but for the want of the exact word, we use loose like terms, loose words, and that create problems. So I recommend that we must have a thesaurus either in hard or soft copy before we write anything which is meant for any good cause, be it for teaching, if we are preparing teaching material, if you're writing an article for like journal, or for maybe a story that large mass is going to read, then we should be extra cautious. Third is a very simple, yet at times I've noticed that some students and even some adults make this mistake with the pronoun, wherein readers cannot tell whom or what it refers to. As in the first sentence, you can see, my cousin Ashish hugged my brother Rajesh, uh, even though he didn't like him very much. So now, as you can see, the purple colored, so there's this confusion. Maybe as English teachers and students we can make out, but when we talk about general readers, it might be difficult for them to process these slightly complex sentences. So it's just alteration of one word with like him with Rajesh that will make the sense absolutely clear. Unnecessary jargon and technical terms. I'm reminded of a friend who had this habit of using idioms excessively. I mean, so excessively that we used to stay away from him, because he had this, it's a typical, PG habit. When we are in PG, we are obsessed with using bombastic words and jargons. So he used to say that, in place of saying, oh, it looks strange to me, he would forcefully, consciously, effortfully, he would say, oh, it looks Greek and Latin to me. Well, that sounds like little funny to me, I don't know about you, but so look at the original sentence. The dialectical interface between liberals and extremists has helped us understand their modus operandi. Uh, of course, when the audience is closed, like a particular discipline, they belong to a particular discipline, we should use technical terms because without them, we cannot navigate through some of the best practices of that discipline. However, we can, we can make them mild and look at the revised version. I'm not saying this is the best one. I'm saying one of the alternatives. The dialogue between the liberals and extremists has helped us understand their plan. Uh, of late, I have realized, and recently Mark Zuckerberg articulated also, and I quote him, that the moment you simplify processes, you enter the right path. So I believe world is already complicated. Let's not complicate it further through our writing. Maybe we can simplify. Fifth and last problem is wordiness. Again, we take this wordiness during our maybe college or master's days when we are writing research papers, wherein we enjoy complexity of sentences, but at times we become too wordy. So we, and you can juxtapose these two pillars, two columns that I have placed here, and see that certain sentences, certain words are redundant words. We should easily replace them with their shorter versions of with phrases. So like I'm not going to read, or maybe I can read at least each alternate. So I came to the realization that instead we can say I realized that concerning the matter of, about, in the process of, while, due to the fact that, because, at the point in time, then. I'm not saying for all these expressions you should replace them. Of course, in certain places these saffron color expressions are required. I'm saying it's this judicious sense of not being wordy helps us in writing in a very interesting manner. What process to follow for writing well? Well, I believe it is known to all, but for the good of the masses, I'm putting it like this. So there are three steps: before, during, and after. So before writing, we should have knowledge, vocabulary, and for that we should be reading continuously. Uh, there's something all of you are familiar called writer's block. So many of us have this tendency that let me read enough and then I'll start writing. Well, that day doesn't come. Once you start reading and when you feel you have like this compulsion for writing something, you must jump into it. So they go hand in hand then. During writing, we should be using dictionary, thesaurus, and facts. We should be checking our facts twice before like letting them out for the larger audience. After, we should be reading and rereading our own writer. I've noticed that students make all the mistakes for the first time in the exam itself. They don't prepare drafts. So from grammar to usage to punctuations to spellings, all these errors are correctable errors, and even in the second draft. Second is invite criticisms. When we write, we should send it to few friends who have better command over language and who can really be brutally honest with us and tell us what should not happen, what should not be included, or what should be included. And then finally, we should revise that. Well, now as you know that right, for sharpening writing, it's not just that we should focus on grammar and spellings and sentence structure and all that. There are a couple of other things that can help. I'm sharing my personal experience. What other things help in sharpening my own writing skill? First is reading philosophy. Second is paraphrasing legal documents. This I always use in my workshop with teachers, particularly English teachers. And third is, of course, translating. Let me enlist reasons why and how these things help. First is reading philosophy, how that helps us in writing well. First is reading philosophy challenges, it questions our own beliefs, and that's very important. Unless there is a constant churning of ideas takes place in our mind, we cannot come with original ideas. So we must come out of conformity of our beliefs, of our stagnant beliefs. And so reading philosophy does that. It makes you question everything you believe. That's why we should be reading philosophers quite often, in fact more often than we should be doing right now. Second thing reading philosophy does is it makes you see connections between apparently disconnect ideas. So you know what Steve Jobs said, it's all about connecting the dots. And in writing also, when we write, let's say when you are drafting a research paper or an essay, there are dead tunnels, you know, there are stuck up points that we don't know now, like how to take it forward. It is for these particular experience that we should be reading philosophy, because philosophers connect almost everything to everything. Third is to have clarity of thought. I believe this is the soul of writing. Unless we have clarity of thought, we cannot come out with a coherent piece of writing. So for philosophy does that, it gives you clarity, not only about writing but about everything in life. Third is when you have clarity, you can articulate ideas aptly and clearly, because philosophers think too much and therefore whatever they bring out is a product of years of thinking. That's why our ancient scriptures are so profound, because we have thought at least 5,000 years on the basic aspects of life. That's why we should be reading philosophy. And lastly, it helps us differentiate real truth from perceived truth, because writing is nothing but standing on our own truth. If there is no truth, if there is no satya, then it ceases to be beautiful. It cannot be beautiful. So you know, to bring truth in your writing, we must understand the truth itself. And to understand what truth is, we must take recourse to philosophy. So that's why we should be reading philosophy, and as an offshoot of that, we become better writer. Paraphrasing legal documents. I'm sure this would sound little odd in our discussion, but when we paraphrase legal documents, something interesting happens. uh, we understand what taut and clear prose is. In fact, I would recommend all of you try this. Pick up one article from our constitution and try to alter a few words. Try to paraphrase that article, and you will notice you will experience enormous difficulty. You will experience great trouble. You know, you will be, you know, scratching your head. Why is it not happening? Because the makers and the writers of constitution, or people who are into legal language, they have to, you know, mince their words, weigh their words so wisely. Otherwise people will go on bending rules by interpreting rules and articles and acts for their own favor. That's why one should do that. To examine the relationship between words and meanings, right? Who can better explain this than maybe Portia from The Merchant of Venice? Yeah. Third is to be politically correct. Yeah, your statement should not be taken out of the context, and no, you should not fall prey to these misinterpretations. That's why the study of legal language per se helps us become more and more concise or compact with our sentence structure and the meaning that we intend our readers to interpret. Yeah, translating. Yeah. All of you, I'm sure, all English students and teachers are by default translators, because we have to do it either for friends while explaining them text, paraphrase the text, and when we work for colleges, we are like more translator than the faculties of English. Yeah, so as Gayatri Chakravarti Spivak said, translation is the closest reading of the text. In fact, it is closer than criticism, because criticism at times is like uh, it's like, you know, it might be, it criticism might be colored by a school of thought. So does translation, but when we are exploring translation, when we are unaware of the intentions why we are translating, we are focusing on the nitty-gritties of language. So when we translate, we explore all aspects of language: meaning, structure, the semantic aspect of it, the appeal part of it, the rhetoric part of it, right, the polyphony, the sound part of it, which doesn't happen in criticism. So that helps us understand and sharpen our writing skill. Again, it enables one to select apt words. It gives a chance to access unexplored areas of the brain. That's why multilingual and bilingual brains behave differently than monolingual brains. And there's ample research that suggests that. For example, certain words don't exist in our source language. So when we get familiarized with them, we don't only understand the words, but we also install the concept behind that words. Let me give one simple example, that there is no word for a brother without a sister in English or in Gujarati. Like, you know, we have a word for children without parents, like they are called orphans or anath. There is no word for a brother who does not have a sister. Now when you, well, let's say when we come across such a word in one of the languages of the world, then the brain function which is related, which can hold that concept, gets activated. So that's why it's very good to be polyglot, and it's good to learn newer languages. So after writing anything, I always ask myself, can my words convey my thoughts truthfully? It is this gap that we have to fill. This gap is of the distance between words and the truth they convey. So this is my like lifelong exploration, that this I should be filling this gap as much as possible. And there are other questions, particular questions, that I always ask. First question is, am I sure what each word I use really means? Here the emphasis is on really, because sometimes we loosely use our words. Have I found the exact word or just settle for the near synonym? It happens to us when we are in hurry, we are drafting a letter, an email, or a WhatsApp message, and on second thought, after sending that, suddenly magically we realize, oh, I should have used that word. Right? It happens with all of us who are obsessed with language and words. Am I trying to impress my reader? This is a bit tricky, because sometimes if it is literary piece, there is this intention, slight intention to entertain, impress. But if that becomes habit for all other types of writing, then there is a problem. Have I consulted any thesaurus? I remember my teachers in the PG department of English, SP University, they used to insist that you must have a thesaurus on your desk, that when in doubt, always consult a dictionary or thesaurus, and that has so far helped. And now I use thesaurus.com for the easy access to words and their meaning. What are the key terms or words or phrases of my argument or narrations that we should be familiar? And those of you who have ever taken IELTS exams, you must be familiar that there are marks for this lexical resource. Third is, am I happy with my own writing? That's important, because that's the personal touch. That's your personal impression that you are leaving in that. Fourth, this is where most of us fall short. Have I edited my draft at least 3 times? I mean, that's the habit I'm arguing. That from the school days we should inculcate these habit among our children, students, and we should not accept as teachers any draft which has not undergone these 3 steps. So finally, we are like in next 5 minutes, I think I'll be wrapping, and then we will have some discussions, questions. So 9 things I personally look for in a good writing. First is truth, as it is, uh, they say it, uncolored by prejudice, bias, opinions. So truth, even truth by truth, I also mean truth of our experiences, which may have subjectivity. Manner of unfolding, logical and coherent, that I should be interested in a kind of reading that unfolds ideas in a very interesting and engaging way, then just throwing those ideas in the form of statements at me. Well, I get very startled with that kind of writing. Oh yes, freshness. I always like to use the word sea freshness. It's like for creative writing, even for general writing, that whenever we go to a seashore and when we see series of waves, we don't get bored. They are the same wave, same pattern, but why is it that we don't get bored? Because the nature has embedded that freshness in it. Now the question is, can we have the same freshness when we are writing something? Variety, oh, it's a huge challenge for writers to break the monotony. So my a 12 line paragraph challenge for all of you is this: write a 12 sentence paragraph wherein beginning should not be repeated, right? If one of your sentences starts with noun, no other sentence is allowed to get started with that noun. If you have started your sentence with the, like, then you are done. You have exhausted your resource of the. Try it out and see what happens. A practice of that will give you this variety. Flow and lucidity, yes, it has to flow. That's why my guide, late Professor Javed Khan, may God rest his soul in peace, he used to correct, and while correcting he would say, no, this is not flowing. This doesn't flow. It doesn't sound like an English sentence. So that has always intrigued me, how to make my sentences look or sound like English sentences. So this is the flow. No? Composition, yes, because after all we are talking about a fabric and the embroidery part of it. So so these 12 sentences are part of a larger schema of a composition. So it should look that, oh, it is a part of something larger than that. So it should not be like, no, the islands of excellence. You have certain sentences which are excellent, but they are misfit in the composition. Clarity, as we have discussed in the philosophy part, yes, the clarity you should have as writer, and you should convey that clarity just to hit the nail on the head. Tone, yes, it should have the personal impression. So it is the tone that gives life to words. So what is your tone? Are you too arrogant? Are you too submissive? Are you too humble? Are you persuasive enough? Are you tricky enough to scaffold your readers? So this is all you can do. For all these 9 aspects, there can be separate sessions, workshops. And yes, content point, because after all, your write-up should enrich the reader with serious, with enlightening content. So these 9 things I always look forward to reading whenever I come across any writing. Finally, those who can write well, they can think well, and vice versa. So this is the deeper connection with your thinking, and that's why all great people invariably write something. Be it Gandhiji, if you look at collected works of Mahatma Gandhiji, they are running more than 100 volumes. If you go to Wildura, Even his single collection of the story of civilization runs 14,000 pages in 11 volumes, and his other volumes as well. You have Tolstoy, like his novels, 400 characters, War and Peace, so many pages. So that's what I argue, that please write to think well. Finally, these are all informal suggestions, unwanted advices. For creative writers, don't write unless it becomes a compulsion. Don't force yourself. Get your grammar and usage right. It goes without saying. Just write, just write it to begin with. Don't think too much, just write it. Revise draft at least 3 times before showing to anyone. Have a gap of at least 2 days between 2 drafts, because sometimes we are overwhelmed by our own write-up and we'll feel, oh, this is magical, Nobel Prize winning stuff. After 2 days when you visit, you will definitely feel like I do it as a trash. Write more and more and more, because it's a skill which can be developed, which can be mastered. Something my favorite author says, that if you want to write short story, you should write one short story a week. So at the end of the year, you will have 52 short stories, and not that all the stories will be great, but your 52nd story will not be a trash. These are the references, friends. 2 references I would suggest everybody, and I've got soft copies I will share with all of you. The last one, Shut Up and Write, is excellent book. Somebody should be interested in. And the 4th one, A Sentence a Day, which is a 400 pages book with only 400 sentences. So there's an incorrect sentence, and the writer has corrected it and given commentary. Beautiful. So I recommend all of you to read these. In fact, I've got all 6 of them in my this collection of a PDF books. I'll share with them to all of you. Well, thank you so much. I believe we still have about 7-10 minutes for discussion. Yes, are you still there?
Yes, Vishal sir.
Yeah.
So first of all, it was wonderful listening to you after a long time. That is, so came across many new things with regard to writing. Now I have certain what should I call uh, doubts with regard to how to write, because I perhaps am not as good a writer as you are. So the first thing that comes to my mind directly, Vishal sir, is uh, do the words choose us, or we choose the words? That is the standard question that we always have, and we always have to go through when we write. Because sometimes what happens is, when we write very simple, also I am of the same belief system as you are, that we have to be as simple as possible when we write. But sometimes our simplistic writing may be taken for granted as well, because when we write very simply, or when we communicate very simply, there's this whole notion of knowledge at par with the usage of words is very problematic sometimes. So what do you have to suggest on that, Vishal?
Okay. First is, please don't call me sir, and this is a request to everybody. Please call me
Yes.
Vishal. I'm more comfortable with that.
Yes.
First is the idea of whether we choose words or words choose us. So again, I'll go back to neuroscience. So it's the more we read, the more access we get to that region of the brain. So when we write something, we have a smoother path to that area of the brain. So the rapidity of our access to word increases, and that's how we become better in terms of choice of words. Definitely words cannot choose us, because they are just codes of the brain. We choose the words, but the process is so subtle that sometimes we feel that they choose us. Secondly, the part of simplicity, like Gandhi has been a very simple writer, and so far the world has taken him so seriously and so knowledgeable. So to me, we should continue to uphold this idea of simple writing. But as I said, the idea of truth, freshness, if and the originality with our own experience, if they come into, if they join that simplicity, I'm sure it'll be beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you. One more, Vishal. One more.
Yeah,
Uh, as you very correctly said that all of us as faculty members of English are default translators.
yeah,
Okay, so I subscribe to that totally. Uh, uh, but you translating a particular text and we being translators of what we do in our institute has a lot of difference.
yes,
Okay, so what is exactly your approach towards the translating things, or how do you look at translation not being so mundane as it has become in our institutes? Because whenever we go to our college, the first thing that we do is we translate circulars of Gujarat government into Gujarati and send them to people. So that is what we do. It has become very boring for us, and
yes.
and you being a translator, look at it as a very creative process. So what exactly do you go through when you translate things?
Yeah. Allow me to use a very informal analogy, but
Yes.
I believe that it is as similar as falling in love.
Yeah.
Because when you fall in love, all the activities you do are related to, and your efforts are the best efforts to impress the partner. So when I translate, be it a government circular or it a novel, my approach is that how can I translate in the best manner? Even if it is so dull as a GR, I've translated so many GR, and right now also I'm translating so much of agricultural stuff from the central government. But still, my hunt is always for the best or the apt. I would use the word apt. If I go with that approach, I really enjoy that process.
Okay. Thanks. If anybody else wants to come in, can.
Hello,
Yes.
am I audible there?
Yeah, you're audible. I think Jai is there.
Vishal,
Yes.
finally, so pleased to hear you after so long.
Oh, yes. Thank you.
Uh, Perhaps I am, along with Dr. Vishal Pandya, sir, I am the one who has witnessed your journey so far in the last decade. So,
Yes.
kudos to you and lots of love to you, my
Thanks.
friend.
Thanks.
And since you already answered so many of my questions, but you also triggered so many other questions.
Yes, please go ahead.
So, can I begin with this writer's block stuff? Like,
Yeah.
see, I have written something on this newspaper Gujarat Samachar and Facebook and all. But then, whenever I start writing, this excessive consciousness of the response that I have received in past intervenes my writing process, and I ultimately give up. Like, okay, I can't write it the way I used to do previously. So, is it what we call writer's block or something else, and how to deal with that? That's my first question.
Okay. 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 Uh, there's a beautiful TED talk by Elizabeth Gilbert.
Mm-hmm.
So that's on one, which deliberates upon this whole idea of how writers should deal with creativity, imagination, and that fragile opportunity that if we make it or it just goes. But I use a different approach altogether. What I do is I
Mm-hmm.
believe in this theory of karma. I just write it. I just write it. I simply, in a, to use slangish term, I don't give damn to what others might say about, and particularly I don't crave for praises. It took very long for me to come out of that psyche.
Hello.
Okay. Hello. Can you hear
I'm
me?
sorry, your voice is cracking, Vishal. Can
Uh,
you repeat the last two sentences?
Yes, yes. So, as I said, one should come out of that idea of craving for praises and admiration. I was a victim of the same for very long, and right now I can say that I have come out of it at least 90%. So praises of my writing, like don't push me that hard, or criticisms on my writing don't pull me that hard. So we should just write, and because no matter what you write, it could be as excellent as William Shakespeare, but the context, which is so dynamic, which is changing every moment. So right now in COVID-19, if somebody writes about freedom, can be taken in a all
Mm,
different manner than that person writing it on any normal
mm,
day. So I believe we should be just writing.
true. And one more,
Yeah.
if these people allow me. Uh, you must be familiar with that famous quote of Chekhov that literature is medicine is my lawful wife and literature is my mistress, right?
Yeah.
So similarly, I call Gujarati, and I mean I am caught between this conflict of Gujarati and English.
Yeah.
Since our area is specialization is English, and I love to write in Gujarati, but then I want to write two verses at a time. So is it possible according to you, and uh, how to deal with this dilemma or conflict?
Uh, yeah, I believe no, but like even if like this is a problem with all the bilingual writers. Uh, but I on my personal experience that no matter how rich our English may be, it cannot compete at any day with the repository of words in our mother tongue, and that says it all. So like and also with this there's a footnote is Gujarati, being a language from certain culture, sometimes fails to hold certain ideas. For example, I find it very difficult to write about maybe uh, freedom,
Mhm.
violence, like all the Western concepts, extreme individualism, for
Mm,
example, or maybe concepts like queer, lesbian, homosexuality. How do you write about them in Gujarati? I don't know.
mm,
So I think it is the idea that would decide the mode of language, or the choice of language.
true.
This is my personal take on this.
Mm, yes. And the last one, since we should also give chance to the students also.
Yeah.
You must have, I mean, you mentioned about reading from philosophy, commerce, and other disciplines, right? And you have been exploring translations a lot. So, would you please recommend certain texts, certain books, apart from literary gamut for us to read?
Oh, a number of them. Uh, first is the beginners of philosophy. The book is The Story of Philosophy by Will Durant.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's
Beginners of philosophy or story?
yeah. I mean, for all the beginners, or even people who have
Okay.
been reading philosophy for long, even it's an all-time favorite book. Uh, so the story of philosophy is one. If anyone is interested in this neuroscience, artificial intelligence, you can read the book called particularly neuroscience and spirituality. There's a book called Neurodharma.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Uh,
Okay.
it's about Buddhism and neurology. Yeah, you can read writings, particularly political writings of William Hazlitt, maybe even Albert Camus' political writing, because he was editor of this Combat, and so many of his articles are so profound that we should be reading. Our all-time favorite is Francis Bacon. Again, his political thoughts. Yeah, and in the area of, I think I also enjoy Amartya Sen.
The
Gandhi is also there. So these are some of the books you can.
argumentative Indian.
Yeah, argumentative Indian, and yes, there is one more book that he has written very recently. It's about the tradition of dialogue in ancient India.
Mm.
Yeah, there are some
But
of the
stay,
books.
yeah, but stay away from Shashi Tharoor.
No, we should read all. We should read.
And yes, there is a request. If possible, please do share your this slide of PPT stuff with the organizer.
Yeah, definitely. Yes, yes.
Yes.
I'll share. Yes.
So I'm thankful to the team Alpha and their friends, and I would not thank you,
Ah, yes. Please,
but
please don't.
we'll get in touch on phone. Thank you.
Definitely. Yes, yes. Yes.
Hello. Sir, my question is in chat box. Can you read this and
Uh,
answer?
just a minute. I have to explore
I
it.
guess
Uh,
that's one.
okay. LTS exams are, but yeah.
No.
Yes. Okay. Just a minute. Ah, we have seen writers with pen and diary in movies and literature. That is the portrayal of writers. It also defines a connection of writer and diary. Pen. Pen, yeah, and write. Pen also, diary, pen. Also, emotions are connected with pen. Is it also the same if we replace pen with typing directly? Is any change if we can notice, or it can be individually also? Okay, so it's again writing and typing stuff. Let me give you example of Ernest Hemingway and J.K. Rowling. Ernest Hemingway and J.K. Rowling both had choice of typewriter, but for writing certain pages, certain chapters, they chose to write with pen and paper. Now that tells us something, that while typing they were, of course they were brilliant, but they wanted to make optimum use of their creativity to express certain ideas which they felt that they could not on typewriter. So that's why they chose to write on with pen and paper, and that J.K. Rowling's leather pen was put in auction, and it was sold, I think, $4 million. Can you believe that? $4 million.
Oh,
So I believe there is some relationship with pen and paper, but we are yet to explore more research on whether something really like drastic happens in terms of our access to creative areas of the brain.
yes, sir. If anyone has questions, please.
Yeah, hello.
Sir,
And congratulations. Hello.
I'm getting multiple voices. Please, one at a time.
Okay. Am I audible to some?
Yes, now you are
Milan?
better.
Yes,
Milan, yes,
Oh,
Milan.
okay. First of all, thank you and congratulations to both of you, Alpha and Vishal sir.
Hello.
Now, I would like to add some points in your slides that reading of books of other disciplines helps writers to write better beyond their field. Writers to write beyond their field. Personally, I have noticed that many works of literature have something of science, religion, psychology, philosophy, history, commerce, and economics, and even of performance. Now it is also a part of psychoanalysis. Now, coming to my question, how to avoid translating the text in the class?
Okay.
Uh, and and secondly, I'm impressed by the thought that writing is more a psychological process. Now, my question is that why I'm not able to write what I think. Now, for say, I got my thoughts got changed as soon as I start writing. Throw some light on this from psychological point of view, sir.
Okay, so two questions. One is how to avoid translating in the class. Uh, I believe that it comes from the demand from the students. A. B. At times, it is the incompetence from the teacher's part that they take recourse to translation. So it is
Okay.
a like then win-win situation for both. The teachers don't have to put more efforts in explaining the text in English, and students in the same way. However, what can be done is again simplifying and asking students to speak more in the classroom. So the teacher student speaking ratio should be 10 gem 90. If that is not taken as exaggeration, I believe that students should be speaking more in the classroom, because the one who has to learn bicycle has to pedal and not the tutor. Our students cannot speak, particularly in Gujarat, because we, the English teachers, we are in so much love with our own voice, vocabulary, and language and presentation that we hardly give chance to our students to speak. Okay, so that is first. Secondly, the psychological aspect, why one is unable to write. Uh, I believe that one should spend more time. So the more time you give to writing, the more you become closer to the nuances of writing, and you will identify your personal style of writing. So that's why, we often quote Churchill, that if you ask me to speak for, let's say, if you invite me for a lecture that I have to give tomorrow, right? It would be it would be very difficult. And if you ask me to speak after 30 days, I have 30 days for preparation. So I believe the more time you spend with writing, the better you become. But don't give up. Like, okay, I'm not getting it. ये बैठ नहीं रहा, ये sentence आ नहीं रहा है. So don't give up. Just hold on, hold on.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yeah. Yes. There was one more voice I was hearing before.
Sir,
Whether
Vaidi, question, and after that, from students' point of view, I shall ask if you permit.
Yeah. Oh, I'm nobody to permit. I'm just a co-learner. Yeah. Please.
So,
Yes.
Vaidi,
Vaide. Yes.
you can ask.
I think we
Or
have lost her.
uh, otherwise, if you can type the question, maybe.
Yeah. Someone else is
She is
typing.
on the
Okay.
call. Also.
She is.
Am I audible to you?
Now. Yes. Please, Vaide, go ahead.
Sir, first of all, thank you for sparing your valuable time and making us aware of basics of writing. Sir, my question is that many a times when I sit to write, someday I write pages and pages, and someday I'm not able to write even a word. So, how to cope up with this when you have a deadline?
Okay. Okay. First is, if it is not related to deadline, if it is just like that, then it is good. Like, it's very human to be moody. Like, khile to fool varna mitti dhul. So it's very human aspect. But when a deadline problem is in India, uh, we have never been taught, or explained study skills. So invariably 99% students, they want to do the mammoth task with an ant's capacity and time. We, from the British, if only thing we could learn is divide and rule. So if it is related to PhD, for example, I used to write one email every Sunday to my guide. One email every Sunday to everything I have done, read, discussed, whatever, and one write up one full page. And when you then compile and then elaborate, and it becomes a chapter. So anybody who is, I have so many friends who have stuck up in their PhD because of procrastination, and then the procrastination has a washback effect on their brain. Oh, it's not happening, it's not happening, but it will never happen unless you, let's say, write at least one sentence a day for your PhD or for anything which has a deadline. One sentence, one paragraph, then you will be psychologically motivated. Oh good, it is happening, I'm working, it's happening, it's working. So it will be like, you know, a greater interest on your saving. So that's my answer, divide and rule.
So much, sir.
Okay, one question we have in the chat box. Okay, yeah, let me go to the question. But it happens with me many times that I sit to write, thoughts are mixing up with languages in English and Gujarati, and when I start finding words, thoughts lost its charm. So what to do? Okay, okay. Yeah, it happens when you have, when in a country like India, when we have access to many languages. uh, Sometimes it's good to write in two languages. You know, we have experiments in French poetry, they have done it, in Russians, and in African literature they have done it enormously. They don't translate, they use African words as they appear, like if you read Chinua Achebe and other writers. So it's good to write sometimes, to write, but then as I said, decide the I mean, based on what you want to write. It's a personal experience, or you just want to describe the beauty of the morning, and then that let it decide. And sometimes you have to consciously make efforts. Let's say I come across this word asmita. While I was writing, I wanted to use that word asmita. Now I cannot use that word asmita in my hardcore, like proper English write-up. So then I have to hunt for dictionaries, thesaurus, to find out a synonym or a closure or equivalent version of asmita. This one has to do to make that writing like something that we expect it to be. But as I say, it's a skill. Over a period we develop it. So we must stick to it and prepare many drafts. Yeah, that's my answer to somebody named with Khasatia. So I don't know the name.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I got it.
Okay, yeah. Any
Sir,
other?
I have one question.
Yeah, please.
As you suggested that we should practice paraphrasing. So, as a student, while paraphrasing, I often feel that if we replace or alter some words, I fear it doesn't give justice to the thought expressed in the original version. And that's why a kind of guilt remains with us as a student forever. So, and also that we as a student are often advised to be as brief as possible in various conferences and seminars we attend. So, is there any clue or tip to paraphrase the whole research paper or the original content uh, as as brief as possible?
Okay, first is uh, the goal of paraphrasing here is not the outcome of paraphrasing, like to give justice to it or to be more faithful to it. It's like learning driving, four-wheeler driving. If you're learning four-wheeler and your instructor is taking you to, let's say, bus station every day 5 o'clock, he or she takes you to bus station. What do you think is the goal? To teach you how to go to bus stand? No, the goal is how to drive in traffic. In the same way, when we paraphrase, the goal is not to make the paraphrasing more authentic. The goal is to feel the pain of the gym while we are feeling the pain, building muscles, doing workouts. It is this workout that will enable us in different place, at a different place, when we are writing something original. So that's the agenda. So we are using paraphrasing as a tool to learn something else.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, this paraphrasing works in our when we give examination.
Hmm.
That if we have this Aristotle's definition of tragedy asked in examination, so when we try to elaborate that definition in our own words, that gives a kind of magic to our answer. But when we consciously try that in various seminars and conferences, we aren't able to do that.
If you are able in one place and if you are unable in other place, I'm sure the context has a role to play, because in seminars and conferences you have those 40-50 pairs of eyes, staring at you, and so that might bring kind of nervousness. And okay, so that could be one in terms of presentation. But I'm sure writing it shouldn't happen provided you have rich vocabulary, and when you have prepared at least 2-3 drafts.
All right, sir.
So I would like to add into this, Vishal.
Please, please.
Was it Vede, madam?
And I think Kavisha.
So, okay. So the problem that Vishal very rightly pointed out is you can write excellently, but you perhaps when you try to speak somewhere in any conference or in seminar, you are not able to. Simply because you are directly judged in a seminar. As Vishal said, uh, as soon as you speak, you will get a sense of a judgment from the audience who is listening to you, and that might be making you slightly nervous with regard to how you approach what you want to say. In terms of writing, there is no such fear of being judged very directly or instantly. So that is perhaps the change that is the context that Vishal is talking about, to be simpler in that way.
Yes, yes.
Yes, sir. It is very relatable.
Yes, exactly.
So, is there any question? We warmly welcome from learners and
Vishal
teachers.
sir, I have one question
Yeah,
in
please.
terms of translation topic.
Yeah, please ask. Who is
Sir,
this? Can you
nowadays,
introduce? Rohit, right?
my name is Rohit Vyas, sir,
Yeah, please,
and
Rohit,
I'm
go ahead.
much more interested in translating text from English to Gujarati.
All right.
Because I've always thought that what is there in English language should be available in Gujarati language also, so that the people staying afar should make the knowledge very handy at that time. So
Right.
there is a novel written by Albert Camus, The Plague. It is published in Gujarati language. In Gujarat Samachar magazine.
Yes.
I think it is translated by Paresh Vyas, and I'm reading. So
All right.
it is in 10 installments. So the language, the way he has used translation process, it is very brief and summarized. So can we just use the method of translating each and every sentence in Gujarati, rather than just paraphrasing the entire core idea of the entire English text or paragraph?
Yes. In fact, when we approach translation, there are choices we have to make. First choice is whether you want to foreignize the text or localize the text. By foreignize, I mean when a reader reads the text, do you want the reader get the feel that, oh yes, it is a translated text, I'm reading a translated text. That is foreignization. You make conscious choice. Second is you localize it, like Meghani did, like many others did, that readers forget that they are reading a translated text. So my personal experience in translation of English to Gujarati is of the second kind. I feel that now localization helps more. So I have translated this Chekhov's story, Death of a Government Clerk, in Kathiawadi dialect and in Kathiawadi context. So I've changed everything, but the plot remains as it is. So that helps. In abridged, the goal of abridged is to give crux. to the readers who are not familiar with the original language. It has its merit, but those who want to relish the text in its entirety should go to the translation wherein sentence to sentence or maybe paragraph to paragraph has been justified.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
So Rohit, I would like to add to this also. What actually happens is, and Vishal, I'll let you know one of the names that we both are very relatable with.
Yeah.
In terms of translation, what happens is, for example, if you are a teacher in a classroom, Rohit, okay,
Yes.
so you always tell your teacher to, સાહેબ આમ કેવા શું માગે છે, આમ એટલું કહી દો ને, આમ કેવા શું માગે, શું કેવું છે આમ. You speak the entire paragraph, you say the context, and at the end we had this very wonderful student Ajit Dodia, if you remember.
Oh yes, yes, yes.
Yes, yes. So what he used to do was, he used to be absolutely baffled by the use of words by our teachers at that time. So, so whenever he used to come across me and perhaps Vishal also, he used to simply say, "Okay, bhai, સાહેબ ટૂંકમાં આપ શું કહેવા માંગે, એવું કહી દો ને, આટલું બધું અઘરું કેમ?" So what translation in our mind is to to shorten the length in terms of how we understand things. That is what I believe, Rohit. And that mindset has to change. Okay. So જે આપણે ટૂંકમાં કહી દો ને, એવું જે આપણે કહેવાની અથવા સમજવાની રીત છે એમાંથી બહાર નીકળીએ તો ટ્રાન્સલેશન વધારે ઇફેક્ટિવ થાય. I think, Vishal.
Yes, sir. Very right, sir. Thank you.
Yes, and the caveat, the biggest problem in this is, in philosophy they call it reductionism. When you have you get into the habit of reducing everything into smaller chunks, then your brain also shrinks. Then in future you lose the capacity to experience and understand something larger, and you develop that myopia, and that's dangerous. So that's why I always recommend that we should not give summaries to the students, we should not paraphrase in the classroom, and we should not translate, because that is a problem. All right, we have one question from Alpa in the text box. I'm reading it out and then I'll probably answer it. If any researcher is doing research in the field of translation and in which language he or she wants to work, but the translation is not available, so if researcher can translate those chosen texts himself or herself, can it affect the process of translation, as the translation is done by the researcher himself? So, and now he or she is going to research, can it affect the research work the researcher is undertaking? Any subjectivity comes? All right, if I understand the question correctly, the question is, sometimes let's say I'm working on, let's say, Saurashtrani Rasthar as part of my PhD in English, and many of the stories have not been translated. So to quote those stories, I have to translate myself. So the question is, will it affect the research in itself? Well, I believe that it will not affect, because in absence of nothing, if you are adding something, it's a value addition. Secondly, if you have said in the bracket that the translations are by the researcher, then you are being open to blessings of whatever ignorance the researcher is licensed to have. So I don't feel that will affect the however, for particular researchers sake, whatever quotes you translate, at least you should share the original and your translation with some translators, so that you will have some guidance on that. Otherwise it will not affect the research, the process of research.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I think we don't have another question. Kavisha, please.
Okay, so Vishal, thank you very much. It was a pleasure listening to you, and thank you, Vaidehi madam, for inviting Vishal on this platform. And we look forward to many more sessions with you, Vishal.
Oh,
and looking forward to see you in person for sure, very soon.
oh, definitely, definitely. I couldn't attend one of your sessions on films
Yes,
because
yes.
we had here sanitization work and a couple of things pending,
Okay.
so we had to go there. But I saw the responses on Facebook, and I'm glad that we're exploring other dimensions apart from literature itself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Vishal. Have a good day.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for listening to me and enlightening with your questions and discussions.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Sir, on behalf of all the learners, I would like to,
Hello, hello.
sir,
Yes, yes.
sir, on behalf of all the learners, I would like to propose a special vote of thanks,
Oh,
not thanks to you, for enlightening us with the process of thinking while writing and with worthy tips as well.
ah, ah.
Thank you, sir,
Thanks.
for the
It's always
discussion as well.
pleasure to discuss with all of you.
We are
You.
looking forward for many more sessions of yours.
Sure, sure, sure. We will have great fun. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Bye. Take care.
Stay safe, sir.